Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners. Sprint Ride Option Podcast. We are 58 days away from week one of the San Francisco 49ers. I am Andrew Pasquini, joined as always by Jason Aponte here on the Sprint Ride Option Podcast. Jason, I usually ask how your weekend's going or how your day's going. I'm going to start by bragging. I'm getting Jollibee for dinner tonight, so it's electric here. I'm very excited. Jason, how are you doing on your Friday?
Wait a minute. Jollibee's good?
Jollibee's very good.
So they just opened one very close to where I used to live, and it's not far from where Averly is in school at. Wow. Now so explain to me real quick. Give me your elevator pitch on Jollibee.
Filipino fast food, fried chicken, fast foods, Filipino spaghetti. They got spaghetti. Wow. They got a good spaghetti. What's the ice cream thing called? I don't remember what the ice cream is called, but it's spaghetti. All very good. I
like that. That's a good meme.
All you got to get is the fried chicken and the spaghetti. You're happy. You're good.
Wow.
Jollibee 10 out of 10. Jollibee 10 out of 10.
That's awesome because it was open in a place that used to serve Burger King, I believe. Okay. So like they opened it up right there. Very good to know. And you know what? As always, I trust Andrew with his football opinions. I trust him even more with the food opinions, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no. You just know how unhealthy I eat. You're like, yeah, he's a connoisseur of the fast foods.
I didn't say that. I said I trust your food opinions because there's people who eat healthy that don't know what's good food.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's people that eat bad that don't even know what good food is. So I trust your food opinions.
Yes, Jollibee 10 out of 10. I would highly recommend it.
Rich Madrid is trying to get in here again. What do we do? What do we do? So here's what we'll do. 16 people in here. Let's open it up. First of all, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and any way that you get the Sprint Ride Option Podcast, make sure that you are subscribed audio-wise. But I'll leave it up to the chat. If we get enough thumbs up, do we allow Rich Madrid in? I just want to say hi, or are you going to help us break down the secondary?
Yeah, you can help us break down the second. I like Rich's attempts of let me in. Just let me in. I mean, yeah, man, if you guys want, we'll get Rich Madrid a little surprise guest on the pod today. But we're talking corners, Rich. So we're not talking corner, we're talking secondary. Today's episode is the secondary preview.
To be fair.
Yes.
Rich Madrid probably has some fair things to say about the one question mark in the secondary. And it's a hot topic on 49ers Twitter because a lot of people are confusing whatever it is that you think about what's going to happen with hate. And it is a hot button topic. So we've got one thumbs up. Let's keep going. Look, let's leave it open for a little while. If we have enough within 10 minutes of the show, we will send Rich the invite, get him in here. That's two. We'll send and let him.
We'll specifically bring him in for the Talanoa Hufanga.
And yes, let's save it. Let's save it for the strong safety position as well. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. As long as Rich tells us to watch more film, Joey, I promise you, everybody could watch more film.
Everybody could watch more film. Actually, watch this segue, Jason. Now, it's too early to use this segue, but the player I'm most excited to watch on film early on here when we start getting the preseason tape, Charvarius Ward. You know, we didn't get to see a ton of him. I didn't get to see much Chiefs tape this offseason. I think I only watched one game of his against the Broncos. So, yeah, the player I'm most excited to watch on film preseason week one, it's got to be Charvarius Ward. I guess that's where we'll start the conversation on the secondary.
Yeah, for sure. And, while I send, because it seems like everybody wants to see this. So, yeah, we're going to send Rich the invite. We're going to send it to Rich and get him in here. But I did have something lined up while I send this to Rich. I mean, this is obviously good audio. Great
audio. Here, you know what I could do? I could list the secondary, the new players, all that fun stuff while you're setting that up.
Sure. Go to the secondary real quick. And then I can pull up
chaotic here on the Sprint Ride Option Podcast. But we're trying to get Rich Madrid on. Always worth it. Secondary right now, we don't have it split up. We're just doing the secondary as a whole, so cornerbacks and safeties. Cornerback room as it stands right this second, July 15th. Jason Verrett, Charvarius Ward, Emmanuel Mosley, Darqueze Dennard, great name, all-time name. I love his name. Cup of tea with the Niners last year, played 21 snaps. Samuel Womack, Ambry Thomas, Kadar Hallman, Diamador Lenore, Tariq Castro-Fields, and Quantrez Knight. And at the safety position, you have Jimmy Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, George Odom, Tarvarius Moore, Leon O'Neal, Taylor Hawkins, and look at the name listed as a safety, Dante Johnson. The new names, obviously, Ward signed a 3-year, $40.5 million deal with the Niners. Samuel Womack, 5th-round pick. And then they also signed George Odom. The two names that are missing from last year, Jaquaski Tart, he signed with the Eagles, and K'Wan Williams signed with the Broncos. That's where the secondary is right now, Jason Aponte.
Shout out to you, Kwaski, man. Go whip everybody's ass in Philly, man. We're out there rooting for you as well, too. But let's start with Charvarius Ward, who I feel everybody looks at as, well, why did they bring him in? What does he offer to the team? Everything. Okay. Kyle Shanahan actually spoke very glowingly about him and said, when I watched the film, he was the guy that popped out the most. And Andrew brought up on the last episode, Kyle Shanahan doesn't really have a hand in defense at all, right? But Kyle Shanahan noticed this while watching their defense. And here's what I wanted to point out. Per Next Gen Stats, new 49ers cornerback Charvarius Ward had a breakout season in 2021. Ward became just the second player to force a higher tight window target rate, 46.3%, than the catch rate he allowed, 44.8%, in a season since 2016, minimum 50 targets. Here's what I wanted to point out. Completion percentage allowed, 44.8%. That's second in the NFL. Average target separation, 2.0, first in the league. Tight window rate, 46.3, first in the league. Coverage success rate, 64.2%, fourth in the league. Targeted EPA allowed, -12. That is 11th in the league, a little bit more. Highest tight window rate was Charvarius Ward at 37%. Everybody's other great corners that they believe, Jair Alexander's number 2, 34.5%. Chidobe Awuzie, 32.9%. That is from the Bengals. Greedy Williams, 31%. Rashad Fenton, 30.7%. If you don't understand what that means is, when you think about the defense on the back end, obviously Tyrann Mathieu is there. Charvarius Ward was, for lack of a better term, their best cover corner, their best secondary guy, and they left him out there on an island, and they did that on purpose for a reason. These numbers bear that out. I do appreciate Next Gen Stats because they do line up with a lot of what people are saying in terms of film, things like that. But without further ado, before we do that, look who's here.
Hello, it's Rich Madrid. Rich, how you doing today? Welcome to the Sprint Right Option Podcast.
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
We're good. I just gave a bunch of nerd stats from Next Gen Stats. Rich, through your film work, does the film match up with those numbers from what you watched, if you watched it all?
I'm not going to BS anyone. I have not gotten to watch Ward. Just didn't have a lot of time, and I had to pick and choose what I wanted to do this spring and summer, and I haven't watched him yet. But the limited games that I did watch, because I think I watched like the NFC Championship game and one of their other games, I really liked what I saw. I think if I had to guess, I'm sure the numbers probably do match the production on the field. I just can't give any more context than that.
And that's fair. Appreciate you, because we on the Sprint Right Option podcast want to normalize I don't know. Andrew,
yes.
Thoughts on Charvarius Ward?
Yeah, so the big thing, you mentioned all those stats. I wanted to compare his 2020 to 2021 just to see, because there seemed to be an uptick in people talking about him in 2021. The thing I saw, I looked at the PFF numbers. His passer rating against was 73.6 in 2021, way down from 2020, 98 against. But the big thing is he was targeted 27 more times in 2021. So there's definitely an improvement from that spot. And this is a position the Niners need improvement from. And I guess it leads into other parts of the secondary to talk about, but it really shores up that number one spot for them, it feels like, at this point. And the plan with the cornerback specifically, because safety is a totally different thing. The plan with the cornerback last year almost felt like we have no plan if Jason Verrett gets hurt. And we saw what happened. Charvarius Ward, he's been healthy. He's only missed 6 games the last 3 seasons, so he's going to give that stability to now. It's my guess. I don't know, and maybe a question for Rich is to see how you think the corners are going to line up in week 1. But my guess, it's going to be Mosley and Ward starting on the outsides, and maybe Denard at slot because it seems they like him. They brought him back, so maybe him. But to try and limit Verrett, try and get productivity while also reducing his snap count. And Ward, yeah, it wasn't the name that a lot of Niner fans wanted. I know J.C. Jackson was one available, one big name. I know there's a few others. Ward was obviously the guy they wanted because he was the first guy they signed. So, Rich, how do you think at least the cornerbacks are going to line up ideally week 1 against the Bears?
Yeah, I think that's barring any serious injury. I think it's going to be Ward and Mosley. I think those are the 2 best corners on the team. I mean, I know I didn't get to watch a lot of Ward, like I said, but they picked him for a reason, and they went out and got another corner because they needed one. And I think it was a good pickup. And that's probably who it's going to be. Mosley, who's their other really good corner, and Ward. I was watching some of the Packers 49ers AFC Championship game today for the 49ers defense and some other things I wanted to study. And Mosley really stuck out in that one. There was one play in particular where he basically kind of attacked the inside shoulder of the pulling tackle and disrupted the run play. And it kind of jumped out at me because he's not typically a guy that we see do a whole lot. But it just kind of speaks to how good of a corner he is and where he's willing to go and where he's willing to stick his neck out for. So I really think that they're going to make him the second corner, and Ward's probably going to be the primary corner. As far as them traveling with whoever, I don't know if they're going to do that. They typically keep one corner on the same side, most games. Just kind of a holdover from the Sherman, the small Sherman era that we had there. But I don't know if what they're going to do outside of that. I don't really have a good feeling about who's going to be the nickel corner. Maybe Denard. K'Wan Williams, he didn't play great last year, especially late in the season. And I understand why they let him go and didn't bring him back. But I don't know who they're going to fill in with. It could be maybe someone like Ambry Thomas, who might be a little more suited for the slot, or Denard, I guess. I don't know. And then when Verrett's healthy, you could see Verrett work in there at corner, and maybe Mosley kicks inside. That would also be ideal too if Verrett's healthy and gets back to 2020 form.
Right. And I think this is what, again, I don't want to get overly excited because we had people in the YouTube comments that were like, well, you need to slow down with how excited you are about the wide receiver group, which I don't understand what that means. But, and then he started talking about like a whole bunch of other things. Here's what's exciting about the secondary. For much of last year, Josh Norman had meaningful snaps. For much of last year, Ambry Thomas, who was a rookie, had meaningful snaps. Now, no matter what you think about what Charvarius Ward is, he's probably better than both of those guys. And Emmanuel Mosley is really good after what he just proved from this year. So it's easy to be excited and say that both of these corners, now you're really going to get crazy, are probably the best during the Shanahan-Lynch era. Yes. Now, let me explain. Richard Sherman, we love Unc over here. Everybody does. But the 49ers were limited to running cover 3 mostly when Sherm was there. You didn't want to leave Sherm on an island. And let's be clear, even during Sherm's prime, leaving him one-on-one in man was never his strong suit, ever. Now, you are talking about the flexibility of the guy after all those stats that I just labeled from Next Gen Stats with Charvarius Ward, being able to play much more man. And if Emmanuel Mosley was the best corner on this team last year, this year, he is going to be against your second best guy. Yeah. And that is something to be excited about. We'll talk about the safeties. We're just talking primarily about the corners at this point. Look, no disrespect to Unc. None at all. But they were somewhat limited in what they could run with him. And again, you know what? Let me take that back. Not limited. They ran what was good to his skill set. Now, the flexibility that you can run with Ward and Mosley on the outside, now married to this pass rush, you have the two best corners you probably have had during this time. No disrespect to Unk, man. No disrespect.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I mean, looking at the secondary as a whole, it's been the quote unquote weak point of the defense, because if you compare it to what the linebackers and the defensive line is, because obviously the Niners, it's been this thing of elite at the pass rush or the defensive line, elite linebacker play, especially with Fred Warner there, and then the secondary, it was just good enough. And this is the first year. Yeah, it's still probably the worst group on the defense, but that's, as I said, that's only because you have an elite defensive line, an elite middle or linebacking core.
It's a good problem to have.
It's a very good problem to have. They close the gap, I would say, a good amount, and it just feels like, and maybe hindsight's 2020, obviously, and we're talking about the 2021 where it was hope Verrett doesn't get hurt. And then he did, everything fell apart. I think the reason we have more comfort with this secondary is now we're talking about Ambry Thomas with a year under his belt, Diamador Lenore with a year under his belt. He didn't play a ton last year. They seem to like Samuel Womack. They have him doing a few things. They have him outside, inside, doing different things. And it feels like there's stability because, yeah, Ambry Thomas, ups, downs, whatever you say, he wasn't meant to be in that position last year. And you couldn't expect him to be a top guy because he was a 5th round pick. He wasn't going to step in and be that guy. But now he's got a year under his belt. You're hoping he plays less snaps. You hope the productivity goes up with less snaps and not have him be exposed like he was in certain situations. So the cornerbacks I'm pretty excited about because if and it's such a big if with Verrett, if he can stay healthy, it feels like there's that depth that they haven't had the past 3-4 years with this group.
So, Andrew, the question becomes this, and let's just play the if game. And I'll throw the question out there. We'll ask Rich, we'll ask you, and then I'll give him my thoughts. If Jason Verrett is healthy, ready to go, and week 1, what do you do in terms of who plays where? And I'll start with Rich. Jason Verrett is healthy, ready to go, week 1, and you believe he is what he was in 2020, which was a very, very good cornerback. Where do you slot those guys?
Just what I said earlier. I think you move Mosley to the slot and you start Verrett at the other corner.
Yeah, I go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I would be bigger on easing Verrett in. Just because of the injury history coming off of torn ACL, specifically in 2021, I would then the issue becomes the slot, right? I mean, because you obviously have Ward and Mosley on the outside, and I'll go Denard just because he seems to be the favorite very early on right now. I wouldn't mind trying Womack, but that's just more of a hypothetical. Obviously, there's a huge difference between me saying I'd love to see it and seeing what actually happens. He probably might not be ready. Obviously, 5th round pick. I would be in the camp of slowing Verrett in and just giving him 5-10 snaps, week 1, and go from there.
Well, Andrew, all right. Yeah. So we're playing perfect world scenario here.
Oh, perfect world scenario.
Yeah, perfect world scenario.
Yeah. Then I mean, if we're sitting in the perfect world, then it would probably be Verrett, Ward, and then Mosley on the slot. I mean, Mosley has the experience. He only played 5 snaps in the slot in 2021, but between 19 and 2020, he played 100. So he has the experience there. So yeah, perfect world. It's going to be Ward, Verrett on the outside, Mosley in the slot.
That's all I'm talking about. It's perfect world scenario. Go ahead, Rich.
One other thing they can do too, and they did this in the playoffs last year. I don't want to transition this to the safeties yet, but they do bring in another safety, and you can kick down Ward into the slot too. They do that a lot, especially when teams move their best receivers inside. You put your best secondary player on them, and I noticed a lot of. I guess it's just recent because I've been watching this game, but they did that a lot with the Packers, where they'd bring in Hufanga and Tart would be the safeties, and Ward would kick down, in nickel or dime packages to cover those receivers at the inside. So they could do something like that too.
They can, and that is more attributed to the fact that Jimmy Ward is like the most slept on safety
that's
in the league.
Situational, and they'll do that heavily against teams like the Packers and the Rams. Maybe not against other teams, but it's not uncommon to see Ward kick into the slot to cover Cooper Kupp in the slot.
Yep,
I've been doing that for 3 years now. So but it is an option when they play better teams with better receivers.
Yeah, let's just, again, because it's July 15th, we're having fun. Camp hasn't even started. Let's play Perfect World. Jason Verrett starts on the outside. Charvarius Ward starts on the other side. And Emmanuel Mosley becomes the best slot cornerback in the league. Because I've watched him play on the outside and cover guys at that level. And look, there are some great slot corners. Some of them are the best on their team. But most of the time when you play 17 games, you're not going to be facing the best corner at the slot. But Emmanuel Mosley is the best equipped. And there's more to playing in the slot than just being able to cover. You have to know your run fits. You have to know when to blitz. And that was what K1 was so good at. Like, K1 was just good at the blitzing part of it. But I think that Emmanuel Mosley is suited to that. And if you are playing Jason Verrett, you don't put him in the slot because for what Andrew was alluding to, you want to save his body. You don't want that man tackling. You don't want him in there on run fits. You don't want him blitzing. This is where he would succeed. If this was a perfect world, Verrett on one side, Ward on the other, Mosley in the slot, and now you are really, really cooking with gas when you come. And this pass rush could even take a step down from where they were last year and still have a better defense overall because Nick Bosa might get ready for this one, a coverage sack. Wow, man, Nick Bosa might get a coverage sack. Look, Rich in 2020 said Kerry Hyder got a bunch of coverage sacks. Why did that happen, Rich? Was it because Jason Verrett was out there?
Pretty much.
So now we're talking. Look, again, it's not being overly optimistic. It's being optimistic, but it's also looking at what's in the range of outcomes for this team, and this is one of them. It is. Yeah. Look, do I expect Jason Verrett to be full go? We're going to find out in 11 days whether he's ready to go for training camp and what's going to happen. But we are taking the optimistic approach, and this is just perfect world stuff. Obviously, nothing happens in a perfect world, but Emmanuel Mosley, I feel, of these three, is suited to go into the slot. I think this is a perfect time, Andrew, to segue into the good stuff here.
The safeties, yes. And actually, I do want to start with a question for Rich because I feel like the biggest complaint, this is something I've asked about in chats, and I want to get you to say it here so more people can hear it. The biggest complaint that 49er fans seem to have about both Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt when he was here was the lack of turnovers. They didn't force a ton of interceptions, anything like that. And that's by design, more or less, correct, Rich? That's how they not scheme the defense, but that's what they want the safeties to do is prevent the big plays.
Rich,
more so than force.
Put that to bed. Rich, put that to bed. Come on.
To get turnovers, you have to be targeted. And to be targeted, quarterbacks have to be willing to throw at your secondary players. They don't target San Francisco safeties, especially the last few years when they've been really good back there.
Well, Rich, they do.
They
when
target.
It's not. Go. I'll let you.
Where are you trying to lead me here?
No. I'm trying to lead you to stomp out the Ward and Tartt, turnover thing, and then it'll segue into.
Ward and Tartt are, in my opinion, a top 10 safety group when they were together. They just didn't. They never got the kind of accolades or recognition that they should have gotten because they don't get things like turnovers, but they're, like I said, they're not targeted. What they're really good at doing is erasing your downfield threats and preventing the quarterback from going there. Perfect example, Packers game. You shade a safety over the top of Adams. You let the corner kind of sink under, take away that route, and Rodgers is going to go somewhere else. And they don't get a target, and that's just the way it is. A quarterback will complete 20 to 25 passes a game, and that's going to be, maybe 3 or 4 of those targets might go against the safeties, depending on the coverage. And if they don't, they don't. And those guys are not really their defense isn't really built on them getting turnovers like that. Their defense is built on taking away your offense's strength, and that's what they do with their safeties a lot, why they rotate them so much. Jaquiski Tartt plays as much deep safety as he does in the box. And those are the kind of looks you're going to get from the 49ers defense, and the teams just don't target the safeties that much. Why would they when you can target last season Ambry Thomas, Demo Lenore, who else played corner last year? Josh Norman, awful. Kirkpatrick for 2 or 3 games. I mean, why am I going to target the safeties and go anywhere near someone like Fred Warner if I know I could target, those guys I just mentioned? It's stupid to even try. And then with Sherman, when Sherman was there and they had him, I mean, they never targeted.
Don't throw him.
They don't throw it at him, even though he got cooked on a lot of his routes against teams that he played against those years. But they targeted the lesser corners, and that was the year that like Mosley came into his own because the Seahawks tried to challenge him with Metcalf, and he held his own. They picked on Witherspoon. They rarely pick on the players that are really good. You don't throw against Fred Warner. You don't throw against Tartt. You don't throw against Ward. And that's why their turnover numbers are so low. I mean, and they have this – Tartt has this stigma, and so does Ward, about not having any turnovers their entire career. Like, okay, I mean, turnovers, a lot of them are luck. You're just in the right place at the right time, or you get a bad throw, or you get a tipped ball. Like, defenders rarely create their own turnovers.
Right. Like, and Rich, so, I would use your point and compound on top of that with Trevon Diggs got a bunch of interceptions last year, but he gave up a ton over his head.
Ton of catches, ton of yards.
Right. So imagine, look, you make a play here, but you gave up a 70-yard catch that leads to a touchdown and you end up losing the game. Okay, but you got your interception and everybody looks at that. Rich, what I want to ask you is this. Ward and Tartt in the run game, they don't give up much, right? Like when it gets to their level, they are some of the best tackles as well, too. It seems like 49er fans, and not the people that are watching this or anything like that, I'm not trying to call anybody out, but for the people who yell about turnovers, they're not excited by the fact that there is no NFC Championship game if Jaquiski Tartt doesn't run down the guy at the end of the half. Also, the Philadelphia Eagles. Right, and also in the Philadelphia Eagles game, Demo Lenore got whipped, and Jaquiski Tartt goes and catches him, and guess what happens? 4 straight plays, and you turn the ball over. Everything is not box score. And run defense, where you fit, your tackles, not missing tackles, are bigger than your one interception that you get. Okay, cool. And that turns into a field goal or something like that. But then the touchdowns you give, if you may not have given up that touchdown, but you gave up a big play that led to that touchdown. Again, you have to start watching the games at a certain point.
The other point in all this too is they're not guys. Ward and Tartt are not guys who are gonna sniff out the play every single pass play and be a ball hawk. That's not who they are. Very few safeties are like that, I mean, and even fewer corners. Well, very few corners are like that, and even fewer safeties are like that. It just doesn't happen. And even on a lot of turnovers, like Tyrann Mathieu might have I think he only had 3 interceptions last year with the Chiefs or something, and 2 of them were like a pass thrown behind a receiver and another tip drop or something. Well, and one of them was like legit, like he made a good play on it, but.
You could even do that with Ward too. His 2 interceptions against the Rams. It was the duck that Stafford threw in the first quarter, and then it was a drop screen by Kupp or something like that. And I think
and then hold up, and then the NFC Championship.
It was another weird one, correct?
It was a bounce off of somebody else. Yeah. It's a lot of it's luck.
The Rams should have blown that game out if not for the 2 drop touchdown passes, and one of them turned into an interception because Stafford threw a bad pass. That's why like people that want to sit there and criticize them for not getting turnovers, I just don't think have a real appreciation for what those guys do when you don't see them off the screen, taking away the first and second reads and forcing the quarterbacks into the loving arms of Nick Bosa.
So I guess to transition it to the 2022 team, because we were talking about 2021, but I did want to get that out there because yes, the big thing I see is Niner fans complaining about the lack of turnovers from Ward and Tart, and it might continue with Ward into 2022. So I just want to get it out there. I want to get all that info out so people know, hey, this is what's going on. So 2022, the safeties listed right now, as I said earlier: Jimmy Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, George Odom, Charvarius Ward, Leon O'Neal, Taylor Hawkins, Dante Johnson.
Rich,
go ahead, Rich.
What happened, Rich?
I had one other thing. I was looking. I was in a 49ers space yesterday on Twitter, and the subject.
Which one?
It was the same one. It ended after.
After all that, we don't need to dive into it. After all that, it turned into very real football talk. Anyway, go ahead.
After 90 minutes of back and forth with that one guy.
Anyways, Rich, what was the stat you had?
Go for
it. Chris, Mr. Roscoe's had a question about who gave up more explosive plays on defense, which position group. And when I was scrolling through it, PFF doesn't give you individual, like if you go to an individual player's stat, like premium stats or whatever, they don't give you explosive plays given up. So you kind of have to search game by game. And so that's what I was doing while this space was going. I was searching each game and looking at the explosive plays given up. And pretty much all the explosive plays came against the corners. You might have one, throughout the course of the season, I think Tart and Ward probably gave up 3 or 4 each. But the corners, Norman, Kirkpatrick, Thomas, Lenore, whoever, you, me, Andrew, whoever was playing corner last year, gave up a ton of
Eric Davis.
Yeah, everybody in Niners Twitter who was playing corner last year gave up an explosive play, basically.
Harris was back.
Fred Warner had a few. The linebackers had a few, but the safeties didn't. It was everybody. Pretty much all the corners and a couple of the linebackers. I think Warner had more than Tart and Ward did. And I will caveat that with not all of that is accurate. Sometimes they may score a play.
Are you talking about PFF?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they score a lot of those plays incorrectly. That's one of my biggest gripes.
Yeah, but this wasn't the fantasy stats that we were arguing with that one guy about that one time. There was one game yesterday that I looked at, and I can't remember what it was, and they didn't score one of the big explosive. Oh, it was Hufanga. They didn't credit him with that big explosive pass in the Cardinals. The second.
What?
Cardinals.
That's all him.
It was.
You mean the one throw from Colt McCoy to it was Christian Kirk?
Yeah,
one of the highest paid receivers.
They didn't credit him with that pass given up.
Wow.
So some of that might be inaccurate, but in general, the safeties Tart and Ward had the least amount of explosive plays given up.
And that Arizona game, Tart and Ward didn't play in that game.
No.
So that's another thing. So all right, Andrew, segue into. This is what everybody's here for at this point right now, right? We're
Yeah, and he's been fair. There's a lot of questions regarding.
You say it so begrudgingly.
Look. All right, look. I just want to dispel the narrative that concerns about players moving forward is hate. And look, this is another thing. This podcast is obviously pro Jaquiski Tart. Pro. Yes. Like we're not just like oh, we kind of feel we're pro. Yes. Pro Jaquiski Tart. And we didn't stand for the slander, never did. He's been on this podcast before. We're big fans. We don't want that to be lost. But we also don't want that to overshadow concerns that we have going forward while being pro Jaquiski Tart. Yes. It's not hate against one side on the other. I think we can all agree, all three of us and everybody in the chat, Jimmy Ward is criminally underrated. Yes. We don't have to talk about Jimmy Ward. We know what Jimmy Ward is. And Jimmy Ward is going to be up for a contract next year, and I would advise you, because I know you're watching Jed York, I know you're watching John Lynch, I know you're watching Kyle Shanahan,
All of them,
to sign Jimmy Ward and give him what he wants.
Yes.
I don't think that that's the issue here. I think what we are worried about, what a lot of 49er fans either have concerns about or they just feel like is not an issue, is strong safety. And that's where I'll leave it to Andrew.
Yes, obviously. And even too, like we are pro Jaquiski Tartt. I've even said, though, on the topic of, obviously, we're talking about Talanoa Hufanga. I've said I like him in sub-package situations where he plays closer to the line of scrimmage. I'll admit that. Where he leaves a lot to be desired is coverage. He's had some not so great games, some lapses. And if you're just looking at the raw numbers, I know it's not the best way to look at it. 11 receptions allowed on 17 targets in 2021, allowed 2 touchdowns and a passer rating against of 130. And I know, as I said, that's not the best way to look at it, but it's there. It exists. It's numbers. We could talk about that. Rich, is the drop-off going to be significant from Tartt to Talanoa Hufanga? And if it isn't, like I guess the question is, give me the positives, give me the negatives of what you've seen from Talanoa Hufanga.
You know what's good?
He's warming up his wrists. He's rubbing his hands.
Real quick, before Andrew answers this, before Rich answers this, Andrew, you are a gem. You're an absolute gem.
You
are easily the best of not one saying anything that is over-inflammatory, looking for any, but you are like leading Rich into the right direction of where he wants to talk about it and everything. Yes. I just want you to know before, we're 36 minutes in, Andrew Pasquini, best in the business in terms of being down the middle, man. I promise you, Rich. Go for it.
Try my best. Go to Rich.
He needs to tweet more inflammatory stuff.
He won't. It'll never happen.
I tweeted after the Rams acquired Matt Stafford, a very reactionary, the 49ers are the worst team in the NFC West. And I had Seahawks fans yelling at me. Okay.
Even they were like, yo.
So I probably closer to the season, you'll get like hot take Andrew.
No.
It's the off season. I don't want to be yelled at about my 14th different tweet about Trey Lance.
I texted you that one last night that you said I should do it. And I said, nah, I'm not going to. You should do it.
I don't even remember what
it is here, though. I'm still.
I'm just gonna read it in my head here. I forget what it was.
To be fair, Andrew is the level-headed person of this podcast. I continue to be the guy who just jumps out the window and says anything that's crazy, and I will continue to be that because I am myself.
I might tweet it.
Rich, secondary, and we're talking about strong safety at this point. Speak to me about what you think is going to happen going forward. What is probably in the cards?
Give me the pros and cons of Hufanga as well. Give me what you think.
It's
Rich. Hold on before you start. Do we all believe that Hufanga is going to start? Because I do.
Yes.
Hand up.
Yeah, I don't know who else is gonna. They don't have anyone else.
It's not more. It's not Leon O'Neal. So let's just stop.
I don't think Leon O'Neal is gonna make the team. But
all right, well that's another discussion, and you're gonna get cooked for that. Just for saying that.
Anyways, Hufanga thoughts. Let's go, Rich.
Hufanga thoughts.
Yes. So it depends it depends what they're gonna do to the scheme and how they feel his abilities are and some of the things that they run in their coverage. But if he's going to be the full-time starter, I'd probably look at a little more single high safety with Ward as the deep safety, because Hufanga is not a guy that I would want anywhere near covering a deep middle third of the field or a deep half. Those were his worst snaps when he was in those coverages. His best coverage snaps came within 5 to 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, because that's just the kind of player he is. He had 2 interceptions in college in that zone, in that range, because he's a little more instinctual down in those areas, but he does not have the speed or athleticism to hang with some of the better slot receivers or even some of the better outside receivers in the league and cover 2 or quarters, anything with 2 deep safeties. He can't hold his ground, and he can't make it up good enough unless the quarterback throws a really bad pass. And so if you're going to have to shade a lot of help his way if he's going to play primarily a deep half safety role, because that's the 49ers have been playing more cover 2, coverage shells. And that's cover 2, that's cover 5 man, that's quarters, that's cover 6, which is that hybrid cover 2, cover 4 shell. And he does not have a lot of good snaps in those positions. So if they're going to play a little more single high, cover 3, cover 1 man, cover 1 to or cover 3 to trips type stuff, then he's a guy. He's a guy who will play down. He should play down low. They should not be moving him back deep.
Roscoe's big USC fan. He likes
big USC guy. Well, first of all, look, shout out to Chris, man. Love Chris. Shout out Chris. But Matt Liner's the best quarterback in the world. Hufanga's the best safety in the world. Reggie Bush is the best running back who's ever played.
I'm guilty of it too, though, because I'm a big Jameis Winston guy. I'm strictly the college he went to.
Right there with Chris. So I knew about Matt Leinart when I was in high school because we played down the street from each other, and he wasn't that good in high school. And somehow
I'm just joking. But look, also Chris,
you're a kidding, man. You're a USC fan, Rich?
What?
You a USC fan?
Yeah.
Okay, so in 2024,
this isn't biased information like that.
No.
That Rich is giving. Rich,
I'm going way sidebar though. In 2024, are you Harbaugh or are you USC? I need you to pick a side.
I'll always root for Harbaugh.
That's all I needed to hear. I'm happy. That's all I needed to hear.
All right. So look to continue the Hufanga talk real quick. Look. There's guys who are very fast and they have, many attributes and they're athletic and everything. Charvarius Ward runs this and that, and I've seen that a bunch of times. That's cool. There's more to play in the position than that. The thing is that Hufanga needs to get better instinctually, and he has to be better at understanding what defenses are doing to him. If he is going to be left out on those coverages, then it is his speed. Because his speed and athleticism won't make up for any lapses. If you make one false step, you can't get back. That's it.
He does not have the ability to recover that well like that. He needs to make the right decision before the shit in front 100%. Of him ever happens.
100%.
For that to work, like he did for a few plays in the Packers game. And that's kind of like, well, you already know where the Packers are going. It's kind of easy to figure out where you need to be. But a lot of his worst snaps either came because he's not athletic or fast enough to get back after he gets beat, or he doesn't make the right decision. If he can make the right decision, he'll eliminate half the issues he has back there. I still wouldn't feel comfortable with him back there on a full-time or even semi, mostly part-time basis. But again, we're not in the coach's room. We don't know how he's going to clean things up this year. I hope he improves. I don't ever want these guys to get worse or show that they can't do it.
No.
Because the best thing for them would be if he improves, because he can be a really great player. If he can translate those short area around the line of scrimmage instincts into something on the back end, then they will have hit on another gem in the 5th round.
One more thing I wanted to point out. One more thing I wanted to point out. Because Rich is absolutely right. Okay, look, I would implore anybody to go look at the first Rams game where the 49ers dominated that game. But it's the first snap of the game. And Talanoa Hufanga is on the field. And look, Rich, I'm going to get to it. Look, this is it.
I like the hand rubs. That's how you know he's like, this is a good point.
This is it.
I know exactly what play he's talking about, because you could tell right away that
he didn't understand what he needed to do on this play. Okay.
And he left a wide receiver wide open that if Stafford had seen, that game might have went differently.
So, look, guys, play result doesn't doesn't exactly for me do it. And I'm gonna implore you
Process
guys.
over results 100% of the time.
Right. So look, go on Game Pass, sign up for it. It's probably $9.99 right now. Okay. The first Rams
Don't
game.
do it.
All right.
I tried
Rich,
to watch some stuff on there
Can
today.
I get my point out?
Oh, sorry.
Rich, you're good. You're good. All right. Look, K1 Williams and Talano Hufanga are lined up at the line of scrimmage, showing blitz on this first play of that Monday Night Football game with the Rams. And the idea is to show both of them and have one drop in the coverage. You don't like the idea isn't like D'Amico didn't run straight out blitzes and just have one guy running wide open. Okay. Hufanga and K1 are on the line. The idea was K1 was supposed to blitz and Hufanga was supposed to drop with the receiver in the slot. The thing is, Stafford never paid attention to the left side. He looked extremely right. And guess what? The play ends up in an incomplete pass. But you know what happened? K1 and Hufanga blitzed. And this man, if Stafford looks this way, it's a wide open pass for a 45-yard gain off the bat in this game. This is what I'm talking about instinctually.
It was Cup, I think.
Yeah, no. It was Couples on the other side, but it was somebody who was wide. I think it was Van Jefferson, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Van was wide. Like, if Stafford looked left, he just gets
for whatever reason, he didn't like that side, and he went to the other side with Beckham, and the ball ended up out of bounds.
And look, I implore you guys, I'm not making this up. Look, it doesn't matter what I'm saying, right? Because I'm telling you he blew his responsibility, and you know what? The play ended up as an incomplete pass. I am telling you that play could have started something that would have been a little bit different. Yes. That drive ended up in an interception, fine. But I'm telling you, when you don't have the athleticism and you're a rookie, I need you to understand exactly what you're doing off the bat. I need you to understand what you're doing. Because if Tart was playing and Tart showing blitz, Tart would have got back. And it doesn't matter if he doesn't look at that side. There's a wide open throw for Matthew Stafford right there. And this is what I'm talking about. Playing with aggression is great, and you want that. Control that aggression and play with that controlled aggression within the scheme, and what they're asking you to do is all we're asking. And for me, again, Hufanga needs to play with more instinct because he needs to win with that instinct because he can't win with athleticism. That's it. That's not hate. That's not hate. That is not hate at all.
No, I don't think it is at all. I think in college, especially now, like pure athleticism makes you a good player. That's just where the college game is. The NFL, you can't do that anymore. And I'll end it with a compliment. I feel like when you picture outside of maybe like the top guys in Warner and Bosa, because when you picture, I'm gonna say an old thing. When you picture all gas, no brakes, Hufanga is one of the guys you're gonna picture on this defense because he is one of those high energy guys.
And they love that.
And we like that, but it's got to be controlled at some point. And if he can control that, he's gonna take a step this year. If there can be less of those, hey, why are you blitzing on this play when you're supposed to be dropping back? He'll take that step, but it happened a little too much last year for comfort. That's why there's so many of these questions. If he showed a little more last year, there'd be less questions. And Jason and I, yes, very pro Tart, we would say, hey, we get it. We're comfortable with it. We see where it goes. But it just wasn't quite there to automatically make fans assume that, hey, this guy can play every down in the NFL.
And Andrew, one more thing. Charvarius Ward has the athleticism that we're talking about. Straight line speed, all of those things. That Buffalo game in 2020, when he had to play, he was out of position many times. Didn't do the right thing on many of those plays. And he had that athleticism. There needs to be a middle ground when it comes to this. And that's what Troy Polamalu was so good at. Instinctually, you know what? On this play, I can attack. I don't have the straight line speed, but he knew where to go. And for people to just say, well, Polamalu is working out with Hufanga, he's going to be Polamalu, that's disrespectful to Troy Polamalu because that's, a man. What I'm saying is this. Athleticism only gets you so far. Instincts only get you so far. There needs to be a middle ground.
Yes.
And this is where Hufanga has a chance to improve because he can't win with athleticism alone and he can't win with instincts alone. But the football IQ is what will get him a little bit further. And I'll tell you this. The 49ers are insistent that this man plays strong safety. Yeah. Insistent. They're going to give him every single chance to try this. And you know what? Jimmy Ward is going to help a ton.
Yep.
A ton. Jimmy Ward's going to take away a lot of the things that he has to do and clean up things on the back end. What I want to say is this. Don't get so wrapped up in hype because he does play very hard, and that's exactly what you need. We're going to find out pretty quickly where this kid really is because you're going to get way more snaps now than you ever did. That's it. Yep. We want Hufanga to succeed.
We absolutely do. We absolutely wanted to have him take that step.
There you go, Andrew. You got it.
Rich, I got one last question, and we're going to wrap up. Just based off of something you mentioned earlier, the Niners using Tart and Hufanga last year with Ward in the slot. And to me, if you try to do that with this secondary, I think the name that would scream out the most to take Ward's spot when Ward's in the slot would be Dante Johnson, would it not? Or is there somebody else you would picture as that guy you could replace Ward with when he's got to come up in the slot?
I'll let Rich go, but we're going to end this with we're going to stomp out some Dante Johnson narratives. Go, Rich.
Yeah, I was really just trying to get the conversation on Dante Johnson.
Well, we know why he's always back with the team, right? Because Swiss he knows every position in that secondary.
He's a Swiss Army knife.
He had some really good reps again in the Packers game.
Talk about it.
I mean, he's one of their smartest players. I mean, it doesn't always show up, and he gets a lot of, and I'm guilty of it too, because every time you see a Dante Johnson play given up, I mean, all you think about is the 2015 season or whenever he came into the NFL. I think it was 2014 or 2015, one of those.
He was drafted by the Niners.
Yeah. Or maybe even 16.
I'm finding exactly what year it is.
No, he was drafted when Tart was, I believe, in the same year. And
2014.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but that's the thing is he has that stigma, giving up big plays early in his career and then getting rid of him and then him coming back. But last year I thought he, as far as that position goes for the corners, I thought he played some of their better snaps for them. He could probably play safety on a limited basis. I wouldn't be opposed to that at all, because he knows the ins and outs of that scheme and knows what he has to do.
So here's what's funny. Dante Johnson gets criticized for a play in 2020 when Carson Wentz threw the best pass that he's ever thrown in his life and will ever throw in his life for a touchdown, where Dante Johnson popped his groin. And it's literally like Carson Wentz could be in a hot air balloon and drop that ball in where it was, and it still wouldn't be as perfect as that throw he had, and Dante Johnson was in perfect coverage. Last year, Dante Johnson, on a play that Rondale Moore made that was completely out of his mind on the sideline in that first Arizona game that Trey Lance started, Rondale Moore made a catch that was the ball was 4 or 5 yards out of bounds. Rondale Moore grabs, and you know what? You blame Dante Johnson. Let me explain to you, and I'm glad that Rich brought up the NFC divisional game. Dante Johnson pressed Devontae Adams into Talanoa Hufanga, where the ball falls incomplete, but yet y'all want to bait Dante Johnson, man? Look, he's the 4th and 5th cornerback on your team. And if you're asking that of any other 4th and 5th cornerback of that team during that big game, that man can't do what Dante Johnson is doing. So I
think in the first Packers game, he gave up a big catch to Adams, but I mean, Rodgers had to place it into Adams in the most perfect spot you could without a defender getting a hand on it.
And it was cold, and the pass rush was cooking.
The week 3 game.
Week three. Okay.
I think it was a touchdown that Adams had. But here's the thing, something stuck out to me in that game when Rodgers was throwing deep passes. He was throwing the ball in less than 2 seconds. Nobody can react to that. Not even a corner in press coverage, trying to cover a guy like Adams. Like Rodgers, I put a little timer on these videos. I have them somewhere, but snap to throw, Rodgers was throwing that ball deep 30 yards downfield in less than 2 seconds. I think I timed it at like probably 1.6 or 1.7 seconds. Just insane stuff. Like nobody can cover that. So, 49ers corners are really good. And Dante Johnson, he's not like an all pro or anything, but he is a really smart, savvy player. And even with press coverage on Adams, you still force the quarterback to be nearly perfect. And I'll tip my hat to Rodgers every time when he does that.
And
there's nothing you can do about it.
That's my thing, Rich, is he's the 4th or 5th cornerback off the bench. And y'all are out here like, oh my God, Dante Johnson's on the field. It's like, bro, there are worse people that you could be playing, and teams are way more desperate for. So, look, am I here to tell you that Dante Johnson is imperative to this team? Like this, it's more to just the meme has gone out of control when it comes to 49ers Twitter.
Yes, I think that's the right way to say it. Is it's been memed so hard that he's been around for so long. He left, he came back, he's been around again for a bit, but like at some point you have to realize there's a reason they keep bringing him back. Josh Norman seemed to be a favorite of the 49ers last year. He kept getting in games. He's not on the roster this year, is he? And I think that's the difference. Yeah, so that's I think that's the difference. So I think that's it for the secondary talk. We didn't expect to go an hour, but once you have Rich Madrid, talk happens and a lot of good conversation happen. I don't know why Rams Station is talking so much.
It's fine. It's
fine. No, because we have Rams fan Rich Madrid with us. Like we have the Rams fan here. But no, hey Rich, thank you for joining.
Which Photoshop picture of me is it? The Rams?
No. When the Bills beat the Rams, in week 1, put the Bills hat on him for
I have that one. I know
you do.
I got a lot of Bills fans that are friends of mine, so I'm kind of like an honorary Bills fan, I guess.
Okay. Beautiful.
They're excited about Trey Lance because they think, they see maybe a little bit of Josh Allen in him. I don't know, but they're excited for us, and they're not a rival, so who cares?
Okay. Hey man, the Chris Berman Bowl. Let's get a Bills Niners Super Bowl going. Hey Rich, you're gonna
look real quick. Rams lose week 1 to the Bills in SoFi after you raise your low banner too. So you're already down 0-1, and the Niners win week 1 to the Bears. So you're gonna be in last place week 1. Holla at me about 2022. We don't care about what happened.
We'll be tied with the Jimmy Garoppolo led.
Hey, sure. Hey, for real, Rams Station. Thank you. Obviously, you're a Rams fan. We're a Niners podcast. Thank you for joining. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate it. Hey, Rich. Last question.
Y'all can't build a stadium. Football's played in a stadium. Who cares about SoFi? That's
Chargers are the best best team in that stadium. Okay, I said it. Go.
Rich Madrid, last question. You want to do it?
Best quarterback in that stadium.
Yeah. You want to do a little show planning for us? So on Monday, we did our wide receiver preview. Today, the secondary. We already have Monday booked with the offensive line. What position group we doing next Friday? Rich Madrid.
Well, I don't know. What do you want to do? I just when I see this is on and I have time at work, I try to crash the party. So.
Let me in, man.
I'm just asking what position group you think we should do next. It does not matter. Literally any position group you can think of. That's not receiver, secondary, offensive line.
Linebackers.
Perfect. It is. Next Friday, we will be talking 49ers linebackers. That'll wrap up the defense. So that's where it goes.
That'll be perfect because I've over the next week I'll be watching a little more 49ers defense.
And we can get Rich Madrid. We can get Rich Madrid back on the linebackers to push the Aziz Al-Shair greater than Dre Greenlaw narrative that we were trying to push.
Hey, so we got Rich Madrid back on the podcast next Friday talking linebackers. We will be back Monday talking defensive line. Hey, Rich, per sources, there's a website that you can visit that has words you write. You want to plug that?
Yeah, I get paid to cover the Packers, so Acme Packing Company. I don't know. I don't remember what the website address is, but just type in Acme Packing Company. I got an article up there today about how the Packers run a play action concept in the Shanahan tree offense because Matt LaFleur runs the same offense. So you can get some insight into that.
Rich, wait. Matt LaFleur is under Kyle Shanahan and they run the same stuff? What? This is brand new stuff to me.
It's weird. westcoastfootball.substack.com.
That's the one.
Is a thing I'm trying to get off the ground. Check it out. If you like it, subscribe, maybe become a paid subscriber. I'm not going to say you have to, but if you like what you see, if you're feeling generous. If not, that's cool too. And then when I get time, Niners Nation and Football Zebras.
Listen, you guys definitely want to read what Rich is writing. Go subscribe to his Substack because he is the smartest. You might not like him. He's grumpy sometimes on Twitter. That's okay, but he is the smartest man on 49ers.
He might call
Twitter.
you a bozo.
He might call you, if he calls you a bozo,
if he calls you a bozo, it's out of love.
You.
It's out of love.
Yes, it means he loves you. So listen, guys, go follow everything Rich does because listen. As I said, I'm in this group chat with him, Jason. We have a few people. I get smarter every day because of Rich Majid. A little insight of the group chat. Our group chat name is 49ers Country. Let's ride. Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's go Niners.
Our secrets.
Let's go Niners. Let's ride.
We're not giving away the free downloadable Simpsons website link.
We're not. 49ers Country.
That stays between us.
Sprint right option. Let's ride.
49ers Country.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.